Hello and welcome back to a farm update on a Sunday morning. You can see I'm not at home at the minute. There's so much going on that Rhonda's brought me away for a long weekend to Portugal. We're over here with Ollie and Martin and one of Rhonda's colleagues and partners, so there's 8 of us all together, and you can just see here, if any of you know this area, I'm just sheltered behind this bush because of the wind. I haven't got one of my muffled microphones with me. We're at the Bold Octopus at the minute on the edge of the Algarve, just having something, having the late Sunday lunch. Anyway, quite a few things happened this week. Those of you who are followers of the farming scene, we've got the SFI applications have been knocked on the head from Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Now that really goes against the grain because the government should give 6 weeks notice when they're going to close applications, and they haven't done. So another further hit on farming and agriculture. I had Jim Egan come over from King's Crops this week to do our hedgerow assessments as part of SFI. We got in SFI on the farm here at home, well not here but at home. We got in there about a year ago. It's one of the options we did with hedgerow management. So Jim Egan from King's Crops came to do that assessment, and I also got his views on the SFI applications and all what's happened this last week. I haven't got time in this update to post that. I'll post that in the midweek update. But a lot going on at the minute here, and also one other thing the government have done this week is I hear that Natural England, or rather the government are giving Natural England the authority to purchase land and to compulsory purchase land to put in environmental schemes. Now Natural England are one of the regulatory organisations that sort of manage the whole of the environmental situations in farming at the moment, and it's just wrong that they're being given compulsory purchase powers to do that. And it's just another situation of where the government are doing this land grab and want to take everything away from farmers. So I've had quite a busy week on the farm at home. We've actually finished the sugar beet harvest for this year. So all the sugar beet has actually gone into the Europe factory. So I've got some footage from that. Also, Michael, my agronomist, my son-in-law, is married to my eldest daughter. Some of you know him. You've seen him in James Peck's or PX Farms videos, known as Cousin Michael. He's actually my son-in-law. We take a look at some of the crops that we've walked in this week, and some really very well-looking winter wheat crops, and get Michael's take on management of those throughout the season. We've also done some spraying this week of some of the wheats, putting on various trace elements and various mixes. And then lastly, we had a meeting with a grain advisory company. They were originally French, but they are now British. They've been set up a British base, about marketing grain, about how we can try and gauge the markets and judge the markets to bet the best use of their advice. They're not grain merchants, but just give advice, so we take a look at them as well. Anyway, that's it for this intro. Thanks ever so much for watching, and we'll see you at the end. So we're just unfolding the sprayer. Clever how it all folds up and all works. All opens out from the road to field work, 32 metres wide in the field. Just lowering it down now for spraying height. So this is one of the fields that we drilled or planted, if you're not quite sure the terminology. We planted it, I think it was November the 15th. Any crops that are planted late, the root structure tends to be not as good as early planted crops. And so what we're putting on now, we're putting on a mixture of chlormequat to help the rooting and to help it tiller as well. And it's also a bit of a growth regulator as well. And you might think it odd that why we're trying to stop it growing, but yet we want to extra tillers and leaves. Well, it actually does help it root and stimulate. And also we don't want crops to go flat, because these crops will get a fair bit of nitrogen to try and make their maximum yield. And then it's also getting manganese, which will help it as well. Obviously that's a trace element. We're giving it some other products just to help the growth as well, trace elements and root stimulants just to help it. So it's really a bit of a tonic to buck it up and just help it root, help it tiller, and just look sort of bush out and just try and reach its maximum potential. Great day for spraying today, not much wind at all, probably only about 3 miles an hour breeze, maybe not even that. So we've got forward and angle back nozzles, you can see there. It gives much better coverage. So the sprayer switching itself on and off at the ends because it knows where Ruben sprayed the outside. So its GPS does that. See, that far side's not on yet because it's overlapping from when it came up the field. So when we're talking about tillers, it's the number of stems, if you like, or leaves. Let's just see if I can just get a plant up without breaking it root off. There we go. There we go. So these are its tillers, its number of leaves and stems that it has out. You can see here from the base of the plant there. So we want to try and improve that. A little bit of disease there coming in. Septoria. This is a variety called Beowulf, most of it, but there is just this side of the field. We ran out of seed and we just put we finished off with a bit of cranium on this side here and also on the headlands. Both feed wheat, but cranium's a bit of an older one. Suits later planting, whereas Beowulf's a newer variety. So I've got Jeremy here from ODA, Jeremy Higgs from ODA. Now we're looking at grain marketing because it's a massive minefield at the minute because wheat prices have dropped about £15 a tonne in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, so well, the last 10 days probably.
Yeah. So we're going to just go through what ODA are. So Jeremy, just explain quickly in a couple of minutes what ODA is and how you help.
Okay, well we're an independent farm advisory consultancy, so basically we help farmers to decide on optimum timing of when to price their sales for wheat, barley, oilseed rape. It's about getting the timing right because the markets go up and down. There's a lot of volatility, and it's a case of advising busy farmers when to actually engage with the markets and when to.
And ODA is short for.
Initially it was a French company, it's not now, it's a UK limited company, but it was short for Offre Demand Agricole, which is something like supply and demand agriculture.
Okay. Great, we'll just have a look at, because you've got some really interesting charts here where the grain markets have gone and things. I'll just get the camera and just hold it so we can just see, because I think this is really, really fascinating. You can just see where it was a few months ago, or even 6 months ago. Jeremy's just going to explain now about the prices and the charts. So over to you, Jeremy.
Well, what we're looking at here, we've got a long-term chart for feed wheat futures. So this is looking at feed wheat futures over the long term from roughly 2002 to the current price in spring 2025. And it's showing you how futures have evolved, and generally we've been in a falling market since they peaked at £350 a tonne.
What's that one at the top?
Well, this would have been about 360 quid.
When?
That was in 2022.
22.
So that was linked into Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And generally we've been in a falling market since then, as you can see. The prices have come down right the way down now. We're looking at £174 a tonne currently for nearby futures. So that'd be for May 25. If we then zoom in a little bit, so if you look at this portion of the chart here, this next chart just shows you that same detail. So these two peaks are these two peaks here. So we're now still looking at the same price essentially. There was just a little bit of time between then when these were printed off, and obviously the markets are dynamic and the price changed. So you can see these same two peaks. We had a big peak in May. I say it was a big peak. It went up to £230, and that was a selling opportunity. But of course, it was difficult for farmers and growers because that was before harvest time. Prices have come away since then.
Sorry, do you know, so how many actually sold at that top level, or percentage-wise, was there many taking it up?
Relatively few, I would suggest, because a lot of farmers have carried an awful lot of wheat. There's a lot of wheat, and has been, that's unpriced on UK farms. So relatively few at that point, and there's a major reason for that, and that was because there was concerns since the previous autumn, and there was drilling issues and people not being able to get the crop in the ground.
There was,
and there was understandably concerns about whether that was going to repeat itself. And
well, a year ago as now, it was horrendous conditions, wasn't it? Dry, wet spring, crops not getting drilled, winter crops coming out, the winter looking really bad, so complete uncertainty.
Yeah, and that uncertainty drove marketing decisions as well. So there's relatively small amount of crop that was sold then. Obviously prices, as you can see here, continue to drift down.
Another little spike there.
That was in October, and I'd suggest that was really the last real selling opportunity to sell wheat when futures were above £200.
Yeah.
And since then it's continued to consolidate and to come down. There was the reason that it fell here, because this builds on the discussion we've just been having, was the very, very competitive Russian exports. Russia had their export surplus to get out.
Yeah.
They had a smaller crop than the previous year. They had a smaller export surplus than the previous year, but they exported it quicker. And their prices were very competitive because they were seeking to sort of make money out of their exports for obvious reasons. And they pushed the price of world wheat down, and it affected UK wheat as well. And gradually the Russian exports started to slow down. They need to slow down. They can step back from the market now and hopefully make some space for European exports to fill the gap. And that's where we saw this consolidation or sideways movement that you can see here on the chart.
Yeah.
Before the impact of the US tariffs and Donald Trump's new trade war started to kick in, and this is
So
when
that's
you
just
open
a result of that.
This absolute falling off a cliff here in about 10 days is the result of the uncertainty in the markets from how the tariffs are going to impact wheat globally and prices of wheat around the world.
Crikey. So this now we're looking at that. That's the crop in the shed, if you like.
Yeah, that's
here.
correct. Yeah.
So now we're looking at the crop in the ground for next year.
That's right. So if we think about the crop that you've now drilled and that you're going to combine at harvest time and sell next time, then you can see that these markets are correlated. So we'd call that old crop and new crop.
Yeah. So just for viewers, old crop is the crop is in the shed.
Correct.
And new crop is the crop that's in the ground that's going to be harvested this next summer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, and you can actually see that there's some strong correlation between the way that these different graphs are going. So you've got peaks in a similar place, but if you look at the y-axis here, the prices are significantly different. So you've got a £15 difference between old crop prices and new crop prices. Old crop prices are £15 less than new crop futures at the moment. So that's illustrating different opportunities for farmers.
But that's for May. That's for May this year.
That's the So this is the London wheat futures May contract for May 25. Compared to the London wheat contract for November 25. Yeah. So obviously between May and November you've got a harvest.
Yes, you've got a harvest. But you see, the thing is that if you say, right, I'm not going to keep my crop, I'm not going to sell my crop, I'm going to sell it then, you've then got to store that crop all the way through to then, and then you've also got to hopefully have enough room to store this harvest crop. So it could have a storage implication.
If you were to keep it right the way through
to November, because I have a storage implication. But also, I think it's worth noting you've got a £15 a tonne drop here, but here you've got like a £10 a tonne drop.
It can just open the mind and start to give us some different ways to consider how we may try to recoup some of this. And when you just talk about different strategies, different tactics to recover some of the losses.
And just to also point out and go through, when we say the futures price, the ex-farm price will be probably £6 a tonne less than that?
Typically it is, but at the moment it probably isn't for new crop.
Right.
So typically yes, but not always. So I'd suggest that in Lincolnshire we've actually had what we'd call a positive basis or a positive relationship between futures and ex-farm prices. So you're probably looking, you can probably confirm that, at somewhere like possibly 180 quid ex-farm at the moment.
Is that where we get?
Yeah,
right.
Well, but I mean, obviously that needs to be confirmed by getting some proper bids off the trade to see. But a lot of farms have been getting bid a positive basis at the moment.
And then is that accurate? Would you be a few pounds off that?
That again needs confirming. You'd probably be a few quid off that because it's new crop. And there's sort of less concerns in that respect. Well, this is Chicago futures. So US futures traded on the Chicago Board of Trade. I look at this every day, and you can start off by looking at because Chicago will trade overnight as well, you know, so when we're asleep, that's trading as well. You can wake up and you can have a look at Chicago, and often that informs, you know, the price direction, you know, for European markets and for London markets as well. If we look at the Chicago ones, you can see that it's been a little bit more volatile, but we've now got down to, you know, low prices since the US tariffs were announced and Donald Trump came into his presidency in the White House. But if we consider the Matif futures, we actually got to a low in August 24. There's still scope for that market to fall down before it gets to the previous lows that it's set. So that just represents a potential risk if market dynamics take it that way.
To get that to pounds per tonne, we need to look at the exchange rate.
That's right.
Euros to pounds. So we start to look. So we're thinking now we're low, but are we the lowest we've been for a few years or for a while? But we're not.
No, we're not. So if we go back to the longer term chart for London futures, so this is going again. You saw this a minute ago from 22 through to currently now in 2025. You can see that I think this was the 19th of February 2024. Nearby futures got down to £158 per tonne. So there's probably £16 above
where it was at its worst. At
the moment.
So that obviously needs concentrating in mind when you look at that. So it could actually drop even more yet.
Well, it's not to say it will drop.
No.
You know, we could have circumstances in market dynamic for prices to start to go up. You know, we can actually see an argument for prices to start to recover, but what nobody can do is predict what Donald Trump's going to do or say next and how the market's going to need to respond to that. We've got a USDA report that comes out today, so you know, depending on how that comes out in line with what traders' expectations are, we could see some volatility put into the market in that respect as well. But there's scope for it to go down. There's always some downside risk. You know, there's in the absence of geopolitics, from a fundamental point of view, there's scope for prices to start to go up again. That's where we sit at the moment. The link to futures is more to do with where the farm's located in terms of the demand. And sometimes you may have local demand into a local feed mill or something, and then they might be offering you bidding prices that are near to futures or better than normal, and that's how you can start to tease apart what a you know, a good local opportunity is, and decide whether to take it or not at the time. So we've just been looking as well at these charts here and the highs and the lows, and just looking at what my objectives and challenges are. And I suppose the objectives is to try and sell as much wheat as we can at the top here, and minimise the amount of wheat we sell down here, and the challenges are to try and make sure that I do that, and it's not always easy, because I think we were just talking off camera that you've got these little spikes here that they might have only been there a few hours. Or certainly a day at most, if it spikes on a day. And so therefore you look at that and you think, right, you look at that spike there and you think, right, I'm not, it's going up heavily now, it's going up there a lot, I'll sell it tomorrow, or I'll wait the next day or two. And then you keep hanging off, and all of a sudden next day when you're going to sell, or you think it's going to climb up a bit more, it suddenly drops. So you think, right, I'm not going to hang on, it might climb back up tomorrow, and what does it do tomorrow? It drops even more. And then you get in the cycle where it's just dropping and dropping and dropping, and you just don't know where you are. So this is why it's really difficult. And a case of trying to set some more realistic objectives, which it often isn't realistic to sell at the top of the market or on the top of the peaks. But if we can set our objective to sell within the top third or quarter of the market, then we're giving ourselves something that we can actually achieve. Because when we sell grain, we tend to sell it now in lorry loads. So a lorry load is 29 tonnes, so we'll sell it in batches of 29 tonnes rather than say I'm going to sell you 200 tonnes. We're just talking as well off camera, another probably challenge, because I am so busy doing other things, obviously at the moment around the country with inheritance tax and the other 4 farmers we're doing things with, and
the various boards I sit on and the talking at conferences and things, it's actually remaining, having an eye on the markets and trying to remain focused and not missing opportunities. And because the markets are so volatile at the minute, hugely volatile, it's very difficult to keep a track on that. And that is where people like Jeremy and ODA and companies can advise on this and advise potentially on the optimum time for selling.
Yeah.
You don't trade grain directly yourselves, do you?
That's correct. We're independent of the trade, so our only concern and objective is the success of our clients and the people that we work with.
Yeah, great.
Got a lot of sugar beet going today, hopefully all of it's going. The reason we're not loading it is because for one, there's a lot of soil in the heat, as you can see here and here. There's a lot of soil in it, and this cleaner takes out a lot more soil, which I'll show you in a minute. But also, the factory have gone absolutely mental at the minute because all the factories are closed apart from Newark. There's only 4 factories in the country. There's Bury St Edmunds in, where's that, Suffolk is it? You've got Cantley, which is a similar area, and then you've got Wissington in Norfolk, or Kings Lynn, and then Newark, Nottinghamshire. And Newark's been performing really badly most of the year. It's the least reliable of the 4 factories. It's got less throughput than other factories, and yet it's now open, the last of all. They're bringing sugar beet from Wissington and from other areas into Newark. Our haulier normally has, and it's GR Ward's one of my relations from Caythorpe, next door village, they normally have throughout the whole of the season 28 loads every day. That's their permit allocation, because you don't just pile it in, you're told how many loads you can take in. So for all the farmers' sugar beet they take in, they are allowed 28 lorry loads a day. So that's not a problem, they can normally get that. But sometimes they were chopped back to 6 because the factory wasn't performing very well. Now we're struggling to get, we've got sugar beet being planted in the next day or two. We've got this year's sugar beet waiting to go in the factory. Other farmers are the same. And now our hauliers here are requested to take in 50 loads a day. They're having to draft in other hauliers here. And I've just been talking to the lorry driver here, Andrew. And he said he watches these videos as well. So you'll see this, Andrew, hello to you. And your other half's in the other lorry, so I'll see her in a second. But so to go from 6 loads some days up to 50 loads, you cannot work like that. And we really have to sort this out. It's another example where it's the farmer that is the one that's carrying all the risk here. We've got, you can see, still going in. We've got lorries today queued up outside, you've just seen outside the gate. And why should it be that the farmer is the one that takes the hit all the time? Newark has been performing really badly. Come on, British Sugar, get Newark sorted. Get the factories sorted, get your haulage system sorted, and stop messing us about, because it's not good at the minute. We're the ones that are carrying the can. So Gillian is Andrew's other half here. We're just showing the amount of soil coming out, it's huge. You start here, you can see when it's tipped in, the amount of soil dropping out here. A lot of tops with it as well. And it's dropping out the rollers. These rollers are really good. You can see them contra-rotating and all the stuff dropping down. And these take out stones and clods and things like that. So that beet basket will hold a lot. Just see the daylight. Over there. We can see some of this beet that's got quite a lot here, so anything like this has got the violet root rot. You can see here where it's black there. Some of these, there's quite a lot here. That one's a bad one. We'll see if we can cut some of these open like that. And that's when you grow sugar beet too close, but we grow it 1 year in 4 in every field. And we haven't got enough land on the tonnage we grow to stretch it out wider. See, it's started to sprout just a little bit in the middle of the heap. That's all right. That means it's warmed up, which helps to dry the soil. And when we go through the cleaner loader here, it actually takes more soil out because the soil's drier. The only thing I don't like about a beet basket, as it's called, you can see it's got bars in it. It's not a bucket. You can't clean up the concrete so well. You leave a little more soil on the concrete. Get a good view from here of the cereals field where the fleece and everything's on through there. He's just moving the cleaner now so he can get at this soil. It's remote controlled from the cab, which is great. It can drive itself. You don't need a tractor on the front. Tom's just come back up with the RX, he's going to put the solo on. It's just at the back of the beet heap there, ready to start working that field. Ruben's just come with the Manitou now, and you can just see how much better a bucket is for scraping the soil, clearing it up. We have two buckets. That's sort of our bucket for sugar beet and stone and things, and the bucket under the shed there is the one for grain. We keep that a lot better. We wouldn't do that with or we wouldn't do this job with that bucket. It wears the blade out a lot more when you're running on concrete and you're running at a stunt angle like we're doing there. Ruben's now just going to take that out into the field and start spreading it in the field so that then Tom can solo it in. So I've got my fantastic son-in-law with me.
Shall I call you Daddy?
Yeah. Well, not sugar daddy though, yeah.
I see you spent an awful lot of time with a camera stuck up the nostrils.
Yeah, well, of course, you're in charge of PX's one this week.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And next week.
I don't know whether I'm in charge.
So,
I like to think I am.
So we're in a crop of wheat here, Michael. So will you explain what we've done?
Just pointing this out, it's a variety that I introduced onto the farm. I recommend it. A variety called Oxford, Group 4 Hard. It's a variety that I've seen in trials for a few years now and really like the look of.
So Group 4 means it's a feed wheat?
Feed wheat, yeah. And I really like the look of it, and it's high yield in Group 4. Its disease profile's good, so hopefully it won't take a lot of looking after.
It was planted 6th of October, but it is quite thick, isn't it? Do you think we put too much seed on?
No, I actually don't. No,
right.
I mean it is thick, and you know, for modern day, it was drilled early, it's thick, and all the rest of it. But we can do something with that. You know, we don't put nitrogen on too early. We'll try and lose a few tillers.
We've held the nitrogen off at the minute just to try and sort of lose some tillers, and otherwise if we put a load of nitrogen on, you're going to have to do a lot more work keeping it standing.
Keeping it standing, exactly. And actually cost, but you can also have them too thick. You know, you get to a stage where actually the yield starts dropping off because they're too thick. So you know, I'm actually really pleased with this. It's
now are you going to be telling somebody in Cambridge how good this is?
No, because I
know
which side my bread butter's on.
Yeah, hang on, you're my son-in-law. It should be put at my side. So what we'll do, we'll just turn the camera around because we've got some interesting things here, haven't we? The growth stage, weeds, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, have a look at it, because actually, when I first started this job, I've been doing this job nearly 30 years, you know, and when I first started, it was sort of around the time of Atlantis, when Atlantis worked, and it was commonplace to drill wheat in September, in early, middle of September, and managing crops like this was a bit more commonplace. And nowadays, if I get my way, we're not drilling until the middle of October at the earliest, and we don't see crops quite as lush as this in early March.
But this had a cover crop on it last year. We didn't have a crop on it, a cash crop as such, a cereal crop, because it was late when we could have got it in, so we put a cover crop in, and it went really well. It establishes well, we mould it, it's never had wet feet, has it, all year?
No.
It's been really good.
No, it's really nice. It's a real good example of a decent wheat.
Yeah.
We're actually approaching growth stage 30, so we're sort of thinking about an early fungicide. As I say, the disease profile is pretty good. Septoria, I tend not to worry too much about trying to tackle Septoria at T0.
As early as this, yeah.
Well, I mean, I used to, but when the sort of early fungicides worked a bit better, so I'm just, it's actually quite good for rust. So I just want to make sure.
Let's just cut a plant open. You can show us what stage it's at. So we're going to pull some up.
Just pull it. Take a sort of good example of a general tiller. But anyway, so it's not quite. You want, for growth stage 30, which is a key timing. Well, there we go. Look, you really want that gap between the base of the plant and the ear to be a centimetre. So we're not actually that far off.
That's not far off that.
No, but we're talking about most of the tillers, whereas
that's the main one.
I've probably picked a main fairly well advanced tiller.
Yeah.
So your leaves are your solar panels, basically.
Yes.
They're soaking up your light, converting the nutrition into yield in the long term. So it's the top 3 leaves I'm wanting to keep clean.
So 4's not.
But leaf 4, we want to start there, knock any disease out there first, so that it's an easier job as we go forward.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
So
so you think at the minute, looking at this though, these main leaves, then there's not that much on. Like it's rooted well. The roots have gone down ever so well. Look at those.
Yeah, they have. They've gone down. Yeah, they're really nice and long. Yeah. But no, there isn't a massive amount. As I say, this Septoria, you're always going to see Septoria, but there's no rust. I haven't seen any rust in here, but I wouldn't necessarily expect to, because it's quite good. Good on rust.
But it's just starting to go off a little bit, isn't it? Just starting to. So if we get on with some nitrogen, maybe in another week's time or something.
Yeah. I mean, I actually wanted it. So that critical growth stage 30 is when it stops tillering, stops growing outwards and adding tillers to the plant, and it starts growing upwards. So once we've got to that stage, it won't be tillering anymore, and it'll be concentrating its energy on growing upwards. So by putting nitrogen on, if you put nitrogen on early, you'll encourage it to tiller more, which actually in a lot of cases nowadays is quite useful.
Yeah.
Let me stand the other side of the wind.
But it's the last thing we want here.
It's the last thing we want. There's plenty of tillers. We don't want any more. So we'll just let it start growing up before we put the first nitrogen on.
Yeah, that's right.
Which really, come next week, I'm not too worried. It'll take a few days for it to get hold of it. That'll be fine. Yeah. It's just started going off, and in a crop like this, I'd really want to start going off.
Yes, when you look,
seeing it going a bit
whether
discoloured.
this is picking it up or not. I mean, just see there's tinges of yellow starting to show through it.
Yeah. As we walked in the field, you noticed a few cleavers, and they're not unusual. We go.
So cleavers, that's a common weed there. Just get that up. That's a common weed on this type of soils and grown wheat. And it's the weed that grows up, and it's all sticky, isn't it? It grows up amongst the plants. It's got seed heads on it when the wheat's out in here, and it just wraps around the combine and everywhere, and it's a real pain in the backside.
And we would sort of grade weeds, if you like, as to how competitive they are in the crop. Yeah. And you need I think you need something like 1 per 2 metres squared of wheat, which is very little for it to be competitive to the crop and worth controlling.
Yeah. But you were saying as well, because we're not putting so much herbicides on, that's why we're getting these.
Well, because you've done a really good job of getting rid of your blackgrass, and you will right down
before
to
you started, wasn't it?
Yes, yes, I can't take credit for that.
No.
However, I'll take credit for keeping it clean.
Yes, exactly.
So consequently, we're not using the level of residual herbicides in the autumn that we probably would on other farms. So you do start to see, various other weeds growing out. Now, cleavers don't take any killing, so I'm not worried about that. It's not like blackgrass where you actually can't get rid of them if you wanted to. So that's all right. It just means you know you've spent very little in the autumn. We'll just spend a bit in the spring tidying up.
Yeah, exactly. And looking at this, it's only cleavers that we've managed to see at the minute.
Yeah, I don't think there's much else. No. But it's also too early, too cold. Herbicides don't work very well in the cold. We'll take those out probably at the T1 at the leaf 3 emergent stage. Yeah. No, I'm very pleased with this. Very pleased.
Got a regular visitor here to the farm. Some of you know him.
Mansfield Town Colours.
Oh, Mansfield, yeah.
We only just noticed that it's taken 2 hours so far today.
Lincoln always beat them. I think this season, Jim, the overall score over the 2 games, is it 7-1 to Lincoln?
I think it might be.
It might be, yes. So, anyway, I'm not going to give Jim too much stick because we're going around mapping the fields. We'll get on to Jim in a few minutes. We'll have a word with Jim in a few minutes what we're doing. But just going to show you here, we've got Agri here treating our spring barley seed at the moment. So I'm not going to spend too much time here. You've all seen this before. We did it last autumn. If you want to have a look at this in detail on one of these machines, this is the update number, farm update to look at. And these guys just getting the barley treated. So in the trailer here, we've got untreated barley. You can see the dust. I'm not going to get too near. Barley dust really bad, very strong. So this is the barley before it gets all the small stuff taken out and all the chippings and everything, and then here that's tied up. We can get, there we go, getting it, there we go, and that's all the treated stuff with all the small taken out and the chemical treatment on. There we go, in the bag there. That's it. That's another bag now full. Just hear the alarm going. Let me just step over these rollers. There we go. There we go. 2 more ton ready to go in the shed. So that's it for this Sunday update. See you back in midweek. I'm not quite sure whether we're going to be doing 1 or 2 midweek updates, but if you subscribe, you'll get the notifications when they come up. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you midweek.